Pete Hugo had long had a dream of building a house for his wife that would rest against the clouds and have an amazing view. It was through a fortune that he made through jam canning in Wellington that allowed him to think about building a house. His factory was in Bain Street, surrounded by the mountains he loved, and it was in this setting that he wanted to build his house. However, Mr. Hugo unfortunately became ill, and his dream needed to be realized with more urgency. The land on which he chose to build his house was purchased from David Joubert, which was a land that comprised most of the area of the western bank of the Witte River. Mr. Hugo approached a well-known builder, Mr. Charles Marais, to build the house, and construction began in early 1940 when Charles Marais and his workers moved in at the site. They managed to utilize stone and sand from the Witte River that flowed close to the house, and donkeys were used for the transport of cement. Amazingly, within only 9 months, the 6-bedroomed mansion, complete with marble floors and beautifully wood-panelled reception rooms, was complete. Wellington Museum reports that in a tragic twist, this beautiful house was never inhabited, as Pete Hugo died in early 1941. He was buried near the house of his dream, and his wife, realizing that this house was too far from civilization, had no desire to live in such a large mansion. The tragedy continues when one of Hugo's sons was killed in World War II, and as such, this beautiful house in the clouds stood empty for 8 years. It was only a caretaker and his wife who lived there. Meanwhile, YourGhostStories.com reports that Hugo and his wife died in a fire that broke out. This fire might be one that broke out in 1949 though, as reports emerge that in February 1949, a group having a picnic failed to extinguish the fire they made at the stream next to Hugo's house. The fire spread rapidly and was aided by a gusty wind. It took the Pal Fire Brigade over 20 minutes to reach the house, and when they did arrive, their efforts were all in vain. In only a matter of minutes, all that remained of this remarkable mansion was blackened walls. For many years afterwards, only the ruins of the lonely old house stood, a sad reminder of Pete Hugo's dream. In 1978, a couple of campers were murdered inside the ruins of the house by what some reports say was an escaped convict. This is not the only murder associated with the area. One day, a couple who had stopped at the side of the road for sightseeing were hijacked and shot dead. Ever since then, there have been multiple reports of a woman on the pass, termed the Ghost of Bainskloof.
The 2 murder victims that died here. Give us your names. Your death was tragic. How did you die? Were you murdered? Are you English or Afrikaans? Can you hear me? Peter, are you pissed off that this place has been destroyed? Your livelihood. Look what it looks like. It was a beautiful gem. What happened? How many people died here? Tell us the story of your wife's death. Are you pissed off that this place has been destroyed from its former glory? What is the name of this place that we're at currently? Can you hear me? Yes or no? Ja of nee? Kan jy my hoor? So julle is hier, is jy Engels of Afrikaans? Engels. Can you see us? Witrivier tragedy. Die Witrivier ramp in 23 Mei 1896. 4 mense is afgesterwe. L van Dijk, F van Dijk, C Klein en Letty de Jager. Letty, is jy hier so? Van Dijk, enige van die Van Dijks? Wat was jou naam gewees? Tim. Peter. Peter again. Was there Peter on that clock? Peter was the owner of this place. Yeah. Paul. Is there Paul on that clock? Two people that we know and that have been murdered here, they were hikers. Were you hikers taking a rest here? Was your misfortune staying over and being murdered unsuspectedly? Tell us the story, it's tragic what happened. We are here to try and assist with whatever information we can to make a story more relevant. Can you indicate into which room on this premises were the murders taken place? Waar was jy met die mes gesteek? Hoe was julle vermoord? Was julle met 'n mes vermoord? How did you die? Was it stabbing? Being shot? Strangled? Because when this place was ruined, remember there was no shelter, it was just the walls obviously. And the place that they could have done for salvage was downstairs. If we are getting closer to the... As ons daar in die kelder kom... Basement cell, there you go. Maak vir ons 'n gelykie met 'n wynbottel. Yeah. Are there any other lost souls that are drifting around here and not knowing why, that have passed away from accidents happening in the past on the other side? We know souls drift. Are there any other names of people drifting around here that you're not aware of? Said there's not. So the spirits that reside here, are you connected to this premises? Is this your house now? What did you used to do here? What did you used to make here?
Relics from the past. We are here at the old ruins, trying to pick up paranormal activity, but as you can clearly see, the state of the place is non-existent anymore, just the mere foundations. So it makes the investigation process very difficult. However, it would not be surprising if there were any paranormal activity that is or still around this area. The theory is also, wherever there's water nearby, a haunting, it is very good because water is a very good conduit of energy. Folklore has it that water channels energy, spirits tend to follow the flow of the water to various areas. So it's not surprising that many coastal towns or many places where there's large rivers or anything like that tends to record higher activities of paranormal occurrences and so on.
Did you lose your life maybe by crashing on the pass on the way up here? Were you driving in a car and then you drove off the cliff? Yeah, twice. How do you do it twice? Drunk. Yeah. Were you drunk and you drove your car off the pass? How do I know that you're here and this isn't just random chatter? Can you do something big? Can you throw something at me or any one of us? Stuck on my shirt while you're not watching.
What's flowing nearby?
What's making a flowing noise? Tell us nog 'n klip is in koop. Perhaps. 2016 there were 2 victims. They went off the cliff in Bainskloof. Car burnt out, unrecognizable bodies. Are those your spirits lingering around here? Close by. Where close by? Must we go back down the pass? Is that where you are, or are you higher up? Were you a female victim of one of those burnt out cars? There's a story going around that people drive through the pass and then they see a ghostly spirit in the back seat. Is that you appearing in front of? Are you trying to give us a message by appearing in the back seat of vehicles? Give us the name of the murder victim that died here at this exact spot. What was your name? That's not nowhere in the place. Peter, did you miss your family? Good luck. Good man. Are you buried at the Wellington Cemetery? I remember seeing something there about the Hugo family. Was that you? Verstaan? Ja, ek verstaan. Pieter, Hugo, is julle geconnecteer met die huise in Wellington? Waar ons laaste was. Die begrafplaas daar het 'n familie Hugo. Is julle enigstens familie verbonde? You need to say Hugo. Can you say Hugo? Please. Do you want me to go or was that a please stay? stay or go? Stay or go? Loop. Must we stay or go? This is your last opportunity for someone to communicate. There might not be another opportunity like again. Your time now is to communicate, give us an answer. And you say Hugo. Peter, Hugo, are you here?
This site held some promise of activity, with the amount of sadness and tragedy involved in its history. On the day, however, the challenges we had faced with the heat, the gusts of wind, etc. led to having to drop some forms of evidence gathering in lieu of responsive techniques. Whilst we weren't able to capture anything groundbreaking, there were a few interesting responses that warranted a second look. All in all, a sad glance back in history that should for all intents and purposes be remembered. A special thanks goes out to Wellington Museum, Urbex Cape Town, and all of the other contributors that made this possible.